Welcome back to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle. For our first guest today, we have Mark Corazzo, a business consultant and coach, and he's here today to talk to us about positive psychology. Mark, how important is positive psychology in lifestyle change?
It's critical, Linda, I think. It's very important in order to get change that the person has confidence that they can achieve it. In addition to, of course, believing in the importance of change. And the way that we like to do that is set small, achievable goals, nothing too much too soon, because success ends up fueling more motivation and better performance down the track. We also like to make sure that people are using positive language, and we're very perceptive to make sure that there's no negative descriptions or negative words occurring. We also, I think, like to celebrate successes, and there's a lot of literature out there talking about the importance of praise and recognition. In the business field, there's some studies out there saying that an encouraging leader has a team with 31% more productivity than others, and we also know, curiously, that praise, properly directed, can be more motivating than money.
Right. And so so when you talk about negative languaging, words, descriptions, yes. What can be done about that?
Well, a lot of the times the negativity, it comes from the individual themselves, the way they talk about themselves. People these days have very high expectations. You'll find that people have got a lot on, they're doing an enormous amount with their family, with their work, and you can sometimes hear them talk about the fact that I should be doing better, I'm not doing enough. Now, what we like to do is reframe that, talk about the wonderful job they're doing already, and then talk about steps that we can apply in order to create more time for them perhaps to do the things that they'd love to do, whether it be the gym or yoga or a meditation class. Sometimes if you're receptive, you'll also hear them say things like overgeneralisations, like if I don't finish that 3-kilometre run by a certain time, it'll prove that, again, that I'm a failure, which is obviously not correct. It just means that they haven't done it this time. Another example might be black and white thinking. You often hear people say, for instance, I'm no good at yoga, but the truth is they're normal at yoga. The fact is that they haven't had any practice at stretching yet. So it's those sorts of thinking, I think, that any business coach or lifestyle coach needs to pick up on and correct.
So easy for us to get down on ourselves, isn't it?
Very much so. And most of us are achieving a lot.
Yes, that's very true. And, when you talk about that, and how does we hear about positive mindset. We have lots of people, inquiring about that. How does that play out?
Positive mindset and optimism is enormously important if you read the research. Our brain tends to anticipate things that is going to occur, and that sometimes brings out a certain form of behaviour which is conducive to positive lifestyle change. Now, there's some very good body of research on that. One that I particularly like occurred by a psychologist called Ellen Langer in 1979, and she took a group of 75-year-old men away for a retreat. She said, I want you to behave the way you did in 1959. In other words, as if you were 55, dress like you're 55, act like you're 55, talk like you're 55. And she then tried to map out what occurred after that retreat. Now, remarkably, she found out after that retreat that they had better posture, improved flexibility, their eyesight had improved by 10%, and interestingly, random people that had not known these people were asked to try and predict their age before the retreat and after the retreat. And on average, they said that they were younger by an average of 3 years after the retreat. So that's fairly strong research. And there has been another bit of research about mindset where the psychologists, one of which was Langer again, took a group of hotel maids, I think it was in America, and told one half of them that what you do for your work is very good exercise and very good for your health. And the other half received no such good news. Now, they found several weeks after this good news was imparted to the first group that they actually had lost weight and they had lower cholesterol.
So how important are emotions, would you say, in wellbeing and lifestyle change?
Well, according to the experts that have really studied this field, very important. One particular academic and psychologist who I respect, Martin Seligman, has dictated that positive emotions are one of the 5 important pillars towards wellbeing. And what he's perhaps suggesting there is things like awe, joy, serenity, hope, and love, and many others are very important to us in being able to have a balanced and flourishing life. So what I think is, or should be, the intent of everybody is to make sure that each day they try and incorporate something in their life that gives them those moments, and certainly more of those moments of positive emotion than negative emotion, because I suppose it's fairly obvious that if all you're dealing with every day is negative emotions, then that's going to be a bit of a drag and a downer for you.
Oh, right. It's like, I suppose you could say, like, you know, you walk down the street and if you smile at somebody, they'll be taken aback, but then they might smile back.
Well, you're touching on a very interesting area there, which is called the contagion effect, and which basically means people's moods really translate into other people. So if you give a smile to somebody else, it's very likely that you're going to spread that bit of happiness with someone else, and yes, you'll get a smile back and make, in the long run, the world a happier place.
Oh, well, that's a wonderful thing for our viewers to know, isn't it?
It
Just
really
to
is.
maybe go out there and smile at others, would
Yes,
you say?
it is. And they also talk about the importance of an act of kindness is very important in spreading goodness and making both the person who receives it and the person who gives it feel better.
Apart from those benefits, what other benefits would you say positive psychology bring to a person? What would those benefits be?
Apart from assisting in lifestyle change, I think positive psychology brings its own rewards. There's very, very good body of evidence from reputable researchers and psychologists that happier people have better relationships, they are more engaged, they are more productive, they have a stronger immune system, and they even live a longer and healthier life. So happiness is in a sense its own reward, and it's also can have an upward spiral effect. If I'm happier and things start to work well for me, I become even happier, and I go on a spiral of upward happiness. So yeah, it's a very, very powerful force, and they say that it is Sean Aker, a very well respected academic in America, has written the book, and he believes that happiness comes before success and not the other way around, which a lot of us have been taught.
Oh. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you, Mark, for sharing all of that today.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
And for more information about Mark and lifestyle change, then please go to our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au, and we'll go to break now. After the break, integrative health and wellness expert Dr Zara Celik is talking about stress management, so please stay tuned. Welcome back, and we have Dr Zara Celik back with us, our integrative health and wellness expert, and today she's talking to us about stress management. So Zara, stress management, can you tell us a bit more about managing stress? We have, I'm sure, many viewers who experience stress in their daily lives. We hear about it all the time.
So there are 2 types of stress. We've got the new stress and there's a chronic stress. New stress is actually beneficial. It helps us to produce outcome and meet a deadline, and it helps us to push through that boundary, that challenge, and get an amazing outcome. Then there is a chronic stress. And again, with chronic stress or stress in general, our perceptions also come into playing a role. So, there could be an event and we both will perceive it completely different and react completely different, and our physiology will be completely different, and along with the biochemistry for both of us. So it really also comes down to our perceptions, right, when it comes to stress. The other thing is our language. That's a big one. It plays a big role as to how we perceive daily, day-to-day tasks, or the language that we use in our work environment, with people around in our circle, with our loved ones, because that whole language can shift so much in our physiology, in our biochemistry, as well as our psychology. So really, we can, for example, I can just right now say, I have to cook, or I can say, I get to cook. Can you see how my physiology, my body just shifted along with that? So with the word, how I use my language with the second one, I get to, that's what gratitude, that's coming in. When we have that gratitude coming in, the language is different. It's not really stressful anymore because I'm saying I get to, and it's divine, it's nice, and my body likes that as well. So that, whether it is the cooking that I'm saying I have to or I get to, whether it is my emails, I have to check my emails. So that task becomes so simple and it is no longer stressful. So number one is language. What language are you using to associate with your daily, day-to-day tasks, activities, or with people around in your circle? So that's a big one. Then, of course, taking care of our physical body as well. Exercise, meditation, the spiritual well-being, spending more time being out in nature, connecting with nature. It helps us to be more grounded, more authentic, more objective. The other thing is making sure that we're not holding on to resentments. We're not judging people. We are conserving our energy to produce amazing outcome, optimum outcomes, sustainable outcomes with things that we do, and we create that leisure and pleasure out of daily tasks and activities. So those things really come handy and very beneficial when it comes to managing stress skillfully. So we're not creating that imbalance in the nervous system, because when there is a chronic stress, there is an effect on our cortisol. There is effect on our hormones. There is effect on our adrenal glands, the cortisol levels. We don't want to overdrive that. We don't want to be in the fight and flight mode all the time as if we're really running away from a tiger, a real threat. With the modern world, we tend to create that with the language that we use or with our perceptions as well. So it is important that we are mindful of our language, mindful of the things happening, and to have gratitude and work on ourselves at mind, body, spiritual level to create that balance, to create that equanimity and that equanimity within and that equity between the others as well. So we are not challenged by little things or by people or with it could be at work with a colleague. So we're not feeling challenged because we bring ourselves to be that authentic, objective, creative self. And that plays a big role. Just being that authentic, at all times plays a big role really when it comes to managing stress skillfully. So for those people who are just starting out, I will say start paying attention to the language that you're using. But for the others, they've already been working on that and also working on their well-being at mental level, emotional level, physical level, like exercising or being in nature and things like that, or practicing spirituality. Go to that next level of mastery and work on your mind. So when it comes to working on the mind, it is that immanent and transcend the mind, which I covered in our previous interviews. That is a big one because mind really plays a role in terms of mental well-being, but also overall creating that equanimity, that homeostasis and equilibrium in the cells and within the cells. So that's what I would like to share and give to our viewers.
Wonderful. And would you have any more, just to end the program, your absolute favourite advice for the viewers about stress management?
So as I said, work on your perceptions, really analyse to see, are you making it bigger than it is? So I will say, start paying attention to your language and see whether it is something to make something greater out of it and perceive it as to be stressful? Or is it something that you can say, hey, that's not that crucial, it happened for me, not to me? How is that benefiting me? How is it helping me grow? How is it helping me to thrive and go to next level? So start from there will be what I will really get people to focus and pay attention to.
Well, thank you very much, Zara.
Thank you for having me.
And for more information on Dr. Zara Celik and stress management, then please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And now we'll go to break, and after the break we'll be back with more guests and topics. After the break, lymphologist Sean Connell is talking about fighting inflammation, so stay tuned. Welcome back, and next we have Sean Connell, our lymphologist, who's back with us today to talk about fighting inflammation. So Sean, welcome back.
Thank you.
And inflammation, so how is inflammation caused in the first place?
Well, the inflammation actually comes from our bloodstream, because our bloodstream's 91% water. So when we break the laws mentally, nutritionally or physically, it's going to cause more inflammation in the body. So this is why stress is the biggest killer. So when we stress, it opens up the capillaries of the pores of the capillaries, and too much of the water comes out. So if there's too much there, sometimes the lymphatic system can't remove that inflammation. So we need to help the lymphatic system to actually remove that excess fluid out of the area around the cells. So that's where a lymphologist and lymphatic drainage massage can come in handy, because we will activate that lymphatic system using the only 4 ways to activate it and move that inflammation out of the area. Then the oxygen and nutrition can get back into that area, and the cells can start to regenerate and heal. And then the white blood cells, the immune system can work, and the body can regenerate and heal itself.
Right. And so when you say it and what it does to our body, what does it do to our body?
Technically, inflammation's causing lack of oxygen. So without oxygen, we don't live very long. So luckily, we have up to 100 trillion cells in our body. So there's inflammation around that area. They'll start to break down and degenerate. So the sooner we can remove that inflammation out of there, those cells can start to regenerate and work the way they're supposed to.
So what other contributors would you say there are towards inflammation within us that can deplete our oxygen supplies?
Okay. So mentally, stress is the biggest killer. Getting angry. If you have an argument with someone, you're tired after that burst because you've created inflammation in your body and it's created lack of oxygen, and then you're tired. Eating and drinking the wrong things. So everything in moderation, so not too much coffee or alcohol or processed foods. Go natural as much as possible. Improper exercise will cause lactic acid in the body as well. All those things will cause inflammation, and if the lymphatic system's not removing that, it'll start to degenerate and cause the body to break down.
So when you talk about the generalisation, do you have a particular example of a situation where someone's been affected with the lymphatic system with the inflammation?
Yeah, well, inflammation's the cause of every problem out there. So without oxygen, we don't live very long. So oxygen is the key. And if there's inflammation in that part of the body, no oxygen's getting there. So it's going to degenerate, break down and die. So we need to remove that inflammation. The only way is through the lymphatic system, and that'll create more energy and more oxygen in that area. We have a lot of people who have lymphedema, which is just the body's just blowing up just with inflammation. So we naturally just activate the lymphatic system and greatly reduce that, and then allow more oxygen to get back into that area, and then the body can start to regenerate and heal itself, and they lose a lot of weight, because over 50 kilos you can hold of just inflammation in the body.
Is that true for anybody who has that sort of swelling in their body, or are there just certain situations where it...
Yeah, if anything goes wrong in the body, all that's happening is there's inflammation in that area and the lymphatic system's not working in that area. So once you activate the lymphatic system in that area, you're going to get more oxygen, more nutrition in there, and the cells in the body can start to regenerate and heal itself. So what's causing the lymphedema and the inflammation in the body is we have blood proteins in our bloodstream. And now their goal is to keep the water in the bloodstream. But as I said before, when we break the laws mentally, nutritionally or physically, these proteins come out much more than they should, and they pull a lot of that inflammation, the water, out of the bloodstream. And that's what's causing the inflammation in the body. So the only way to remove that inflammation is by activating the lymphatic system, removing those blood proteins back to the bloodstream, keeping the water in the bloodstream.
And then when you're saying those 4 systems, also the technology that you've mentioned before.
Yeah.
Yes. Is that technology sort of widely available?
Not many people know about it. It's not that widely. There's some doctors around the world using it, but it's very unknown.
Well, and how would you say, what would your best advice for our viewers be around fighting inflammation?
Well, the number one thing we have to do is activate the lymphatic system. As we said before, there's 4 ways to activate the lymphatic system: deep breathing, bouncing, stroking, energy. You're required to get 30 minutes of aerobic exercise every day. Walking, do your deep breathing while you're walking, or if you're with someone, you're talking. So you're doing the breathing naturally by just talking. So don't be the one that's just not talking, talk as well. So obviously see professionals out there, they're the experts in the field, so they'll do that. But at home, you've got your deep breathing, bouncing, stroking, energy. You can do all these things at home to help activate that lymphatic system. But professionals out there have technology now that's way out of this world that really, really activates the lymphatic system, move a lot of that inflammation. You're going to drop a lot of weight, you're going to have more energy, your body's going to work the way it's supposed to, it's going to regenerate, you're going to get younger, you're going to feel really, really good.
Thank you so much for that, Sean. And for more information on Sean Connell and fighting inflammation, then please go to his webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au, and we'll say bye for now and see you next week. If you'd like to know more about our show, please like our Facebook page and also subscribe to our YouTube channel.